I stopped the payment at 12:14 a.m. Didn't even wait for morning. My son's text came in at 12:01. Just 7 words. Dad, check her bank app. Now, I thought it was a mistake. It wasn't. The house was quiet. Furnace humming. Kitchen light still on because I forgot to flip the switch before bed. I was halfway down the hallway when the second buzz hit my phone. Not another message. Just my own pulse in my ears. I opened the banking app, and I just stood there. I'm Uncle Mickle. That's what the guys at work call me. Been that way since my 20s. I'm 40, well, 48. No, 47. I always round up in my head. Feels older some days. Anyway, for 3 years, I sent my wife's mother $300 every month. Same date, same amount. I set it up automatic because I didn't want to forget. My wife said her mom was struggling after her arthritis got worse. Said the heating bill in her little apartment was eating her alive in winter. 300 wasn't nothing, but it wasn't going to break me either. I work logistics, long-haul coordination. Not glamorous, just steady. I like steady. So I sent it. Every month. Didn't complain. Didn't ask for receipts. Didn't need thank you cards. Then my son, 16, sharp kid, quiet observer, texted me past midnight telling me to check her bank app. Her bank app. Not mine. Hers. That detail didn't even land at first. I just thought maybe she'd been hacked or something. Maybe he saw something weird when he was helping his grandma with her phone earlier. Kids know tech better than we do. That's what I told myself. I remember the hallway light buzzing. It does that when the bulb's about to die. A faint electric twitch. I stood under it scrolling through the joint access account I had with my wife for family transfers. 3 deposits from me that month. 300 each. I actually blinked a few times, thinking the screen lagged and duplicated the line. It didn't. $900. Same memo note. For Mom. I felt my jaw clench. Not anger. Not yet. More like when you bite down on a popcorn kernel you didn't expect. Hard. And then I noticed the outgoing transfers. Not bills. Not groceries. Casino charges. Spa reservations. 2 separate airline deposits. All within 48 hours of my last payment. I leaned against the wall. The drywall felt cool through my shirt. I remember thinking that was strange because the heat was on. I didn't yell. Didn't wake anyone. I just stared at it and tried to understand what I was looking at. Maybe it was a reimbursement? Maybe her sister paid her back and the app grouped it weird? No, that didn't explain the triple deposit. I scrolled back 2 months. Same thing. Not triple, but double once. I don't know how long I stood there. 5 minutes. 10. Could have been longer. Time felt thin. My son texted again. You see it. I typed back. Go to sleep. That's what I sent. Not because I wasn't rattled, but because I didn't want him carrying it. He replied, sorry. And that word hit harder than the numbers, because that meant he'd been watching this for a while, which meant he didn't trust it either. I walked back to the kitchen and sat at the table. The wood has a small split near the corner from when we dropped it moving in. I ran my thumb across that crack without even thinking. 3 years. 36 months. $300 each. I did the math in my head and lost track halfway. I think it's 10,800. Or maybe 10,000. No, that's right. 10,800. Somewhere in there. Money I thought was helping an old woman keep the lights on. And now my son's the one who tipped me off. Not my wife. Not her mom. My kid. I closed the app. Opened it again. Hoping it would look different. It didn't. That night, at 12:14 a.m., I canceled the automatic payment. Didn't leave a note. Didn't text my wife. Just stopped it. And I sat there in the dark kitchen listening to the refrigerator kick on, wondering how long I'd been the only one who didn't know. Before all that, things felt ordinary. Not perfect. Just settled. We lived in a 2-story place about 20 minutes outside town. Vinyl siding. Narrow driveway. Porch light that flickered if the wind hit it right. I kept meaning to replace the fixture, but never did. Always another project. My wife handled most of the family communication. Birthdays, holidays, who was mad at who. I stayed in my lane. Paid the mortgage. Kept the cars running. Showed up when needed. Her mom moved into that small apartment after her second knee surgery. Third, No, second. The third was later, I think. Doesn't matter. Point is, she wasn't working anymore. Fixed income. Tight margins. The first time my wife asked about sending money, we were standing at the sink. Dishes stacked. Soap bubbles sliding toward the drain. She didn't look at me when she said it. Mom's behind on electric again. I asked how much. She shrugged. It's not just electric. It's everything. There was a hesitation in her voice. Not dramatic. Just thin. $300 a month sounded reasonable. That's less than a car payment. I figured if it meant her mom didn't have to choose between heat and groceries, then fine. Family's family. That's how I was raised. My dad used to loan his brother cash even when we barely had enough. Drove an old pickup with a cracked windshield because he wouldn't ask for it back. I used to think that was weakness. Now I'm not so sure. Anyway, we set it up that weekend. Automatic transfer from our joint household account into an account my wife said was specifically for her mom's expenses. Cleaner that way, she said. I didn't question it. Looking back, maybe I should have asked why her mom didn't just have it go straight to her own account. But at the time it made sense. My wife managed her mom's bills online. Less stress for the older generation. That's what I told myself. Every month, around the 1st, I'd see the notification. $300 transferred. I'd nod at the screen like it was a receipt from the gas station. Done. My mother-in-law would call sometimes. Thank me. Long stories about the neighbor's barking dog or the pharmacy mix-up. I put the phone on speaker while tightening something in the garage. She always said, I don't know what I'd do without you. And I believed her. The apartment smelled like lavender cleaner and something fried whenever we visited. The blinds were always half-tilted. There was a small ceramic angel on the window ledge that leaned slightly left because one wing had chipped off. I noticed that the first time and never forgot it. Little details stick. My son used to help her with her phone updates. She'd complain about passwords. He'd roll his eyes, but do it anyway. Good kid. There was one moment, this was maybe last fall, when I walked into the living room and saw my wife quickly closing her banking app. I remember because the screen flashed bright green before it disappeared. I didn't think much of it. Actually, that's not true. I did notice. Just brushed it off. We all value privacy. Married doesn't mean surveillance. Right? Maybe that's something worth asking. When does trust become avoidance? I don't know. Around Christmas, my wife said her mom's rent went up. Another 100. I said we could adjust if needed. She said no. She'd cover the rest by picking up extra shifts at the dental office. I admired that. Still do. Or did. Hard to untangle now. There were small things. My wife buying new boots. Weekend spa days with co-workers. I assumed she budgeted separately. She's always been more social than me. I'm homebody by default, and I never once logged into that account she used for her mom's expenses. Not because I couldn't. I had access. It just felt intrusive. Trust was easier. I keep thinking about one Sunday afternoon. Football on mute. Sun coming through the blinds. My wife on the couch scrolling. I asked casually, "How's your mom holding up?" She said, "Better. Your help's made it manageable." Your help. That phrasing sticks now. At the time, it felt good. Like I was steady ground. There was no shouting in our house. No slammed doors. We weren't that couple. Disagreements stayed low volume. Practical. Which makes what happened later feel stranger. Because nothing exploded beforehand. No warning siren. Just that faint buzz of the hallway light. And a 16-year-old boy who noticed something I didn't. The first thing I did the next morning was nothing. That sounds strange, I know. But I got up at 5:30 like always. Coffee. Toast. Let the dog out. My wife was still asleep. The sky outside had that dull gray color that makes everything look unfinished. I stood at the sink longer than usual, staring at the frost on the fence. I didn't mention the bank app. Not yet. I wanted to see if anything felt off. Breakfast was normal. My son came down, backpack slung over one shoulder. He didn't look at me right away. That caught my attention. Usually he gives me a nod. Small thing. That morning, he poured cereal and kept his eyes on the bowl. My wife was cheerful, talking about a co-worker's birthday lunch. Mentioned needing gas in her car. Gas. I almost laughed at that word. Instead, I said I'd fill it up later. The triple deposit sat in my head, like a loose screw rolling around in a toolbox. Every time I moved, I heard it. At work, I pulled up the account again during lunch. Sat in my truck, engine idling for heat. I checked 3 months back. January, $300 once. February, $300 twice. March, 3 times. It wasn't random. It was increasing. That pattern bothered me more than the number. I called my wife around 2 p.m. Just casual. Hey, I said. Quick question. Did we change anything with your mom's transfer recently? She paused. Barely. But I heard it. No, why? I thought I saw a duplicate charge last month. Might have been my mistake. Another pause. Oh, yeah. There was a mix-up with her insurance premium. I had to move money around. Move money around. That phrase. I said okay. Told her I'd double-check later. Hung up. Now, here's the part one keep replaying. I almost let it go right there. I almost told myself, she answered. Good enough. But something about the way she said insurance. Too quick. Like it was preloaded. Or maybe I'm rewriting it in my head now. That happens. Memory edits itself to protect you. Or accuse someone else. I don't know. I drove home slower than usual. Not intentionally. Just slower. That evening, I watched her from across the kitchen while she chopped vegetables. Her phone sat face down near the stove. That was new. She used to leave its screen up. I noticed she took it with her when she went to the bathroom. That might sound paranoid. Maybe it is. But when you start seeing one loose thread, you look for others. After dinner, my son lingered near me in the garage while I pretended to reorganize a shelf that didn't need reorganizing. He said, "Did you check it?" I nodded. He swallowed hard. It's been like that a while. How long? I asked. Since Christmas. I think. Since Christmas. That's 3 months I didn't catch. I asked how he even saw it. He hesitated, then said, Grandma asked me to update her phone. The account was logged in. I just noticed the transfers didn't match what she said she was getting. Didn't match what she said she was getting. That sentence changed everything. Because that meant the money wasn't just misallocated. It wasn't reaching her. I felt my stomach drop, not dramatically, just a slow sinking like when an elevator starts moving before you're ready. Don't tell your mom you told me, I said. He nodded. That felt wrong, asking him to keep something from her. But I needed space. That night, after everyone went to bed, I logged in again. This time I checked outgoing transfers from that account. Money moved into a second account. Same day as my deposits. Different bank. Different account holder name. My wife's maiden name. Not her mom's. I sat there staring at it. The cursor blinking on the screen, like it was waiting for me to catch up. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't insurance juggling. It was deliberate. I closed the laptop slowly. Didn't slam it. Didn't sigh. Just closed it. And I asked myself something I hadn't needed to ask in a long time. Do I confront her tomorrow? Or do I watch a little longer and see how deep this goes? I didn't confront her the next day. I told myself I needed clarity. That's the word I used. Clarity. Sounds better than suspicion. The house felt different, though. Same walls. Same couch dent where I sit every night. But there was a tightness in the air, like before a thunderstorm when the sky goes yellow and the birds stop. I logged into the account again during my lunch break. Parked behind the warehouse this time, away from the loading docks. I didn't want anyone knocking on my window asking about shipment numbers while I was staring at my marriage. I went back 6 months. Every month, my $300 went in. Every month, within 24 hours, most of it went out. Sometimes all of it. Sometimes more. I started writing numbers down on the back of an old invoice. March, $900 IN. $850 out to the secondary account. February, $600 IN. $600 out. January, $300 IN. $280 out. The patterns were tight. Clean. Too clean. Then I checked something I hadn't thought to check before. Her mom's utilities. I called the electric company under the excuse of verifying account details for tax purposes. They confirmed the account had been on autopay for over a year. No missed payments. No late notices. The balance was stable. Not struggling. I sat there with the phone still in my hand long after the representative said goodbye. The warehouse door behind me clanged shut, forklifts whining in the distance. I remember looking at my reflection in the truck window, sun hitting my face from the side. I looked older than I expected. Maybe I always did. I called her mom next. That part wasn't planned. She answered on the third ring, cheerful. Said she was watching some cooking show. I asked how she'd been managing lately. "Oh, honey," she said. "Your help's been such a blessing." I swallowed. "You've been getting the full 300 every month, right?" Silence. Not long. Maybe 2 seconds. Then she said, "Well, your wife handles that, sweetheart. I just get what I get." "What do you get?" I asked. Another pause. "About 100. Sometimes a little extra near holidays." 100. My hand tightened on the steering wheel. I said, "Okay, just making sure things are straight." She laughed lightly. "You're too good to us." Too good. I ended the call politely. Sat there listening to the tick of the engine cooling down. So now the picture was sharper. 300 sent. 100 reaching her. 200 siphoned. Sometimes more. Over 3 years. I did the math again. 36 months times 200. That's 7,200. Maybe more if you count the double months. 7,000 plus. I think. My head wasn't steady enough to be precise. Might have been closer to 8. Numbers were swimming. I drove home that evening earlier than usual. My wife's car wasn't in the driveway. The porch light flickered on even though it wasn't dark yet. Sensors always been too sensitive. Inside, the house smelled like vanilla candle wax. She must have lit one before leaving. I went into our bedroom and opened her jewelry drawer. Not to snoop. I don't know why I did it. Maybe I was looking for something that matched the numbers. There was a new bracelet in there. Silver. Small diamonds set along the band. I don't remember seeing it before. Maybe it was old. Maybe I just never noticed. That's possible. I'm not great with details like that. But I noticed it then. Later that night, she came home with a small shopping bag. Said it was a birthday gift for a coworker. I nodded. Asked how dinner was. Normal tone. Normal pace. I watched her set her phone on the counter again. Face down. After she went to shower, I checked the secondary account again. Another transfer that day. $250. Memo line blank. No explanation. I felt something shift inside me. Not rage. Not tears. More like a gear locking into place. This wasn't sloppy spending. It was sustained. Intentional. And the worst part wasn't the money. It was the steady lie. 3 years of mom struggling. 3 years of gratitude phone calls. 3 years of me believing I was helping someone keep the lights on. I stood in the hallway outside the bathroom. Steam creeping under the door. Water running. I almost knocked. Almost said, "We need to talk." But I didn't. Instead, I walked back to the kitchen, opened the banking app one more time, and saw a pending transfer scheduled for the 1st of next month. $300. Already lined up. And for the first time, I felt lower than confused. I felt used. Not in a dramatic way. Just practical. Like an ATM that smiles back. The next morning, I didn't feel explosive. I felt clear. There's a difference. Anger makes you loud. Clarity makes you quiet. I woke up before the alarm. The house was still dark, faint blue light creeping through the blinds. I laid there staring at the ceiling fan turning slow, counting the rotations without meaning to. 1, 2, 3. Then I stopped counting. Didn't need to. I rolled out of bed and went straight to the kitchen table with my laptop. No coffee yet. I wanted my head steady. First thing I did was remove my wife's access to the household primary account. Not dramatic, just a settings change. Then I transferred the remaining balance into a new individual account under my name only. I left enough in checking to cover the mortgage and utilities that were already scheduled. I wasn't trying to punish anyone. I was trying to stop the leak. That's how I framed it in my head. I canceled the upcoming $300 transfer again, just to be sure it hadn't reset. Then I set up a new transfer, $150, directly into my mother-in-law's personal account. I got the routing number from her electric bill statement I'd photographed months back. Didn't even remember I had it until I searched my phone. Funny what you keep without knowing. I paused for a second before confirming it. Was it $150 or $200? I almost made it $200 out of habit. No, I chose $150. Enough to help, not enough to be exploited. That decision felt balanced, I think. Then I printed 6 months of statements, highlighted the duplicate deposits and outgoing transfers with a yellow marker from the junk drawer. The ink bled slightly through the paper. Cheap paper. I stacked them neatly. When my wife came downstairs, she found me sitting there with the papers laid out like a small audit. She stopped mid-step. "What's all this?" she asked. I didn't raise my voice. I checked the account. That's all I said. Her shoulders stiffened. Not dramatically, just a tightening. I slid the highlighted pages toward her. She didn't sit. She scanned the numbers standing up. Her face didn't crumble, didn't crack. It stayed controlled. Then she said, "You went through my accounts?" I corrected her without thinking. "Our accounts." That word hung there. She exhaled sharply. "I was going to tell you." That line always shows up when someone's cornered. I've heard it before in other situations. Not like this, but similar. "When?" I asked. She didn't answer that directly. Instead, she said her mom didn't need the full amount every month, and sometimes she used the extra to cover things she didn't want to burden me with. I remember focusing on the word burden. Spa days. I asked quietly. She flinched. There it was. She started explaining. Said she felt invisible. Said she'd given up things after our son was born. Said it was just a little extra. Said I wouldn't have agreed if she'd asked directly. That last part might have been true, but that's not the point. I told her I'd redirected the payments, half directly to her mom. The rest stopped. She stared at me like I'd taken something vital. "You can't just," she started. "I can," I said. Not loud, just firm. There was a long stretch of silence. The refrigerator kicked on. The dog scratched at the back door. She asked if I was threatening divorce. I hadn't even thought that far yet. Honestly, maybe that's surprising, but my mind wasn't at the courthouse. It was at the ledger. "I'm protecting what I earn," I said. That sounded colder than I intended, but it was accurate. She accused me of humiliating her by calling her mom. I didn't deny it. I had called. That part I'd do again. She cried. Quietly. No screaming. Just steady tears. And here's where I hesitated internally, because part of me wondered if I was overcorrecting. Was I making a permanent move over something that could have been fixed with a conversation months ago? Maybe. But 3 years isn't a conversation gap. It's a pattern. I told her we needed counseling, financial transparency, separate discretionary accounts. No more blind transfers. No ultimatums. Just structure. She asked if I still trusted her. I didn't answer right away, because trust isn't a switch. It's a track record, and hers had dents now. I stood up, gathered the highlighted papers, and said something I didn't rehearse. If helping someone makes me a fool, I'll still help, but I won't finance lies. Then I left for work. Driving down the street, I asked myself something I didn't have a clean answer to. Is protecting your boundaries the same thing as punishing someone? I'm still not sure. That evening, it broke open. No slow build. No gentle lead-in. I came home, and her car was already in the driveway. Engine still ticking from recent parking. Front door half-latched, not fully closed. That alone told me she was pacing. Inside, the house felt tight. Windows shut. Air heavy. She was standing in the living room. Arms crossed. Eyes red but dry now. I called my mom. She said immediately. Of course she did. And, I asked. She's confused. She thinks you don't trust her. I don't, I said. That landed hard. She stepped forward. You went behind my back. I let that sit for a second. Then I said, behind your back is what 3 years looks like. Her jaw clenched. She said I was acting self-righteous, that I'd never understood what it felt like to depend on someone, that the money wasn't just about spending. It was about autonomy, control. I almost laughed at that, not because it was funny, because the word control felt upside down in that moment. I walked to the kitchen table and set my keys down slowly. Deliberate movements. I didn't want this turning into volume. You could have asked, I said. You would have said no. Then we would have talked. She shook her head. You think everything is numbers. That part stung, because maybe I do. But numbers don't lie. People do. She grabbed her phone off the counter and pulled up the account, held it out toward me like proof of something. Look, she said. I always made sure Mom got something. Something. I stepped closer and looked at the screen. Another pending transfer. $400 from the secondary account into a travel agency deposit. Travel. For next month. She saw my eyes land on it and quickly locked the screen. Too late. For who? I asked. Silence. For us, she said finally. I was going to surprise you. I searched her face for hesitation. There was some. Or maybe I wanted to see it. Hard to tell in hindsight. I remember the way the kitchen light reflected in her pupils, more than her actual expression. I asked, with money labeled for your mother? She didn't answer. That's when I felt something close off inside me. Not rage. Just a door clicking shut. I said, I'm freezing that account tonight. Her eyes widened. You can't. I can. You're going too far. Maybe I was. For a split second, I questioned it. Was I escalating? Was this about $200 a month in pride? Was I turning a wound into a war? If you're listening to this and thinking I should have handled it softer, I hear you. I asked myself the same thing standing there. But then I pictured my son texting me at 12:01 a.m. because he couldn't carry it alone. And that steadied me. I opened my laptop right there at the kitchen table. Logged in. Changed the passwords on the secondary account. Disabled outgoing transfers. She watched me do it. Didn't scream. Just stared. You don't get to unilaterally decide, she said quietly. I didn't for 3 years, I replied. That wasn't sharp. Just factual. She said I was humiliating her. I said secrecy did that on its own. The dog barked from the hallway, probably reacting to tone. I hadn't realized my voice had risen until then. Not loud, but tighter. She sat down finally, hands flat on the table. So what now? She asked. I didn't have a rehearsed answer. Now, I said. We rebuild with receipts. That sounded harsher than I intended. I almost softened it. Didn't. She accused me of treating her like an employee. I told her employees don't hide payroll. That one might have been too far. I'll admit that. There was a long pause. Long enough for the refrigerator to cycle again. Long enough for the porch light to flicker on outside. Finally, she said, if you do this, you change something between us. I nodded. It was already changed. And that was it. No shouting. No slammed doors. Just two people sitting across from each other at a kitchen table that suddenly felt too small. And I realized this wasn't about catching her. It was about deciding what kind of man I was going to be next. The house didn't explode after that. It just shifted. Like when you move a couch a few inches, and suddenly the whole room feels unfamiliar, even though nothing dramatic happened. For the first few days, we operated on logistics. Who's picking up groceries? Who's driving our son to practice? Mortgage cleared. Utilities paid. No small talk. The kitchen table became neutral territory. I moved my direct deposit into the new individual account permanently. We set up a shared expense account strictly for household bills. Equal monthly contributions. Documented. Transparent. It felt clinical, but calm. My wife agreed to counseling. Not enthusiastically. Not angrily either. More like someone signing paperwork they don't fully believe in yet. First session was awkward. The office smelled like peppermint oil and carpet cleaner. The therapist asked us to explain what happened in neutral terms. Neutral. That word almost made me smile. My wife said she felt financially dependent. Said asking me directly for personal spending money made her feel like a teenager requesting allowance. I hadn't thought of it that way before. I told the therapist I would have rather had a hard conversation than a hidden one. That part was true. What I didn't say out loud, at least not in that first session, was that the hiding hurt more than the spending. It's strange. If she'd come to me and said, I need $200 a month that's just mine, I probably would have negotiated, maybe argued, but we'd have structured it. Instead, I found out from my son at midnight. That detail lingers. My mother-in-law called me a week later. Her voice sounded smaller than usual. She said she hadn't realized the amounts involved. Said she thought her daughter was just managing things. I believed her. I think. She apologized. I told her she didn't owe me one. I increased her direct transfer to $200 after that. I meant to say that earlier. It wasn't $150 long-term. It was only that first month, while I recalculated. I adjusted it later once things were clearer. Details matter. My son and I had a quiet conversation in the garage one evening. He asked if everything was going to be okay. I didn't promise anything. I told him adults sometimes make complicated mistakes. That noticing something wrong doesn't make him disloyal. He nodded. That mattered. Weeks turned into months. Counseling sessions stacked up. Some productive, some tense. There were days I questioned whether freezing the account was too hard a move. Maybe I could have phased it differently. Maybe confronting her privately, without changing passwords, first would have reduced the shock. I don't know. What I do know is this. Once I saw the pattern, I couldn't unsee it. Trust, once cracked, doesn't shatter loudly. It splinters quietly. You feel it when you pick it up next time. We rebuilt structure before we rebuilt warmth. Separate discretionary budgets. Shared spreadsheet access. Monthly review meeting. Sounds corporate, I know. But it removed shadows. And slowly, conversation returned. Not like before. Different. More deliberate. There were still moments when I caught myself wondering what I didn't know. That doesn't vanish overnight. It fades in degrees. I remember one evening sitting on the porch alone, late summer. Air thick with humidity. Mosquitoes buzzing near the railing light. I thought about the version of me who never checked the account. He was peaceful, but he was also uninformed. Would I rather be peaceful or informed? That's not as simple as it sounds. If I could rewind to that night at 12:01 a.m., would I still cancel the payment immediately? Yes, I think so. Actually, I would. No hesitation there. But maybe I would have sat down with her before moving the money. Maybe. Or maybe clarity requires action before conversation. I still go back and forth on that. What I know for sure is this. The house feels steadier now. Not softer. Just steadier. And sometimes steady is enough. It's been a year now. Maybe a little over. I lose track of exact months unless I check the calendar. And I don't feel the need to check anymore. The payments to her mom still go out. $200, first of every month. Direct. Clean. No detours. She sends a thank you text each time. Short ones. I prefer that. My wife and I still keep separate discretionary accounts. We review shared expenses on the first Sunday of every month after dinner. Laptop open. Receipts lined up. It sounds rigid when I say it out loud, but it's actually removed tension. Structure can feel like freedom. That surprised me. Counseling tapered down, from weekly to once a month. Then once every 2 months. Not because everything's perfect. Just because we're not bleeding anymore. There are still quiet moments where I look at her and wonder what was going through her head back then. Was it resentment? Fear? A need to feel independent? I've asked her directly. Sometimes she answers clearly. Sometimes she shrugs and says she doesn't fully know herself. That part feels honest. And honesty, even when incomplete, lands differently than secrecy. My son turned 17 last week. Taller than me now. He doesn't bring up that night anymore. But sometimes I catch him watching us when we're balancing the spreadsheet. Not suspicious. Just aware. I'm glad he saw the repair part too. Because here's the thing people don't talk about much. Integrity isn't loud. It's repetitive. It's small corrections made consistently over time. It's logging in when you don't feel like it. It's asking the uncomfortable question before resentment builds. It's boring, but it works. I've replayed that moment at 12:01 a.m. more times than I care to admit. The glow of the phone screen. The hallway bulb buzzing. My thumb hovering over the app icon. If I'd ignored that text, life would look calmer on the surface. But underneath, it would have kept leaking. And leaks don't fix themselves. I don't hate my wife. That surprises some people when they hear the story. They expect anger. Some dramatic exit. Lawyers. Slammed doors. That's not what happened. What happened was quieter. I drew a boundary. She didn't like it. I didn't enjoy drawing it. But it held. There's a difference between generosity and self-erasure. I didn't understand that line clearly before. I thought being a good husband meant absorbing inconvenience silently. Maybe sometimes it does. But not deception. Here's something I still sit with. If someone uses your kindness without your knowledge, is it still kindness? Or does it become something else entirely? I don't have a perfect answer. What I do know is this. Helping family should feel steady, not secretive. Support should move in daylight. If you have to hide the path money takes, something's already off balance. And balance matters. Not because of dollars, because of dignity. I still believe in helping people. I still believe in stepping up when someone needs you. But I also believe in looking at the receipt. Both can exist. They have to. So that's my story, folks. If it resonated with you, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments where you're listening from. I want to know how far Uncle Mickle's voice travels. Generosity without transparency eventually turns into quiet resentment.